Garden Express are the leading harbingers of spooky plants and otherworldly gardening relics. Each week during the Garden Gurus seance, the Garden Express team unveil their ghostly offering. As today's supernatural gathering draws to a close, peer online to their bewitched website. But beware, they have some killer deals. Mwahaha.
Well, anybody would think it was Halloween or something, wouldn't they? Hey, I think there's been a lot of fun had here. Shaylee's right into Halloween and celebrating. You can see some people have sort of said, "Is that normal?" That's a little bit harsh, I thought. But hey, hi, I'm Trevor Cochran. Welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. It's going to be a fun show today. We've got a whole heap of things happening. In fact, we will be answering your questions, which is probably the most important thing for you. Please remember, when you actually post your questions to us, that you do need to tell us where you are. State, ideally town, suburb, it all helps, because it'll help me work out the answers for you. And yes, the horns are a little bit bewitching. Now, Shaylee, do you think you could scroll down for me so I can kind of see what we're doing here? Yeah, there we go. I'm sort of making things up randomly. Of course, the show today is all about answering your garden questions, but we also have fantastic prizes each week. $50 gift voucher for you at Garden Express. Talk about bewitching. That is a pretty good deal. Excuse me, Glenn Miller. What do you mean you didn't notice anything different at all? I am getting a bit of a hard time. That's okay. I deserve it. Thanks, Glenn. We do have a pretty cool offer coming up for you as well. In fact, Rowan, who's been known to be a bit of a dinosaur at times, well, we've now got evidence that he really is. Let's have a look at this. Good fun. That was at Mifkus. That's Rowan inside that dinosaur suit. Of course, that was celebrating the Bloomin pine, which is a sensational plant that is distributed all over Australia, indeed the world, by Garden Express. And Rowan's joining us now out of his dinosaur suit, I believe, Rowan.
Hey, how you going?
Good, mate. That's a lot of fun, isn't it, eh?
It really is, yeah. Everybody seems to love it. No, it is a lot of fun. It's good to give back to the community sometimes like that.
Yeah, and you look a little bit of theatre, a little bit of drama. Doesn't go astray, does it?
No, that's it. I should have had it on today, but it almost doesn't fit in my office. So yeah, sorry, I'm not dressed up, guys.
Hey, so tell me, mate. Last week we had a pretty good deal. How did that all go?
Yep, same story, mate. There's all but gone.
Wow, sold out.
Yep, all sold out. It's been a pretty good year for the offers. We tried to bolster our numbers, but we're still selling out each week, which is a great thing.
Yeah, look, it's because the deals are good and the plants are fantastic. Tell me, what have you got for us this week, Ron?
So this week we're talking African violets or St. Paulia. I've got some here to show you. They're looking amazing. Now these are the same ones that we sent across to you to put in your entry wall.
Living wall. That's right.
So we've teamed up with Bloomin Orange. Obviously they're the breeders of African violets or St. Paulias around the world. And yeah, we're going to bring you 5 different colours for a really good saving. They're normally $17.90. They're going to be just $13.90 delivered directly to you.
Wow. That's a super cool deal. This is one of those plants at the moment that's really trendy. It's really come back.
Yeah.
And there's quite the story with these. These are plants that originate from the forest floor in Tanzania. So this hence the name African. The flower very violet-like. But it's not just when you talk about these particular plants, it's not just the flower. The flowers are larger. They stand out off the plant, and this is all that breeding that the guys at Bloomin do. Look, you can see just how magnificent they are. They are absolutely beautiful,
Yeah,
and
they are.
and a lot of people feel like this is a fragile kind of plant, but they're not. They're remarkably hardy.
They are, and even if you do happen to break one of the little leaves off, you can plant that straight back into the ground, and you're going to get another plant out of it.
Exactly, and most people don't realise that. But if you break the leaves off and just pop them in a glass of water, they'll actually drop roots out the stem of the leaf and then produce new plants just like this. Look at those colours.
They're really stunning. So, like I said, we've got five different colours. That really dark purple one there, that's called Leah.
That's gorgeous.
Got a slightly lighter, more purple one. That one's called Alice Red. The blue one I showed you before, which is Rianne.
Look at that.
Which is really good. And then
stunning.
A couple of bicolours, which are pretty hard to get your hands on. We've got probably about half the plants that we've received of this particular variety have flowers like you're seeing there, and the rest are just in bud, which will burst shortly. That one's called Gloria, and perhaps my favourite, Paddy, which is that beautiful bicolour.
Look at that.
Yeah,
they really are stunning plants, and this is all this Bloomin orange breeding that's bringing forth these amazing plants. Interestingly enough, the African violet was only 150 years ago that it was discovered by a German, Baron von St. Polia. So hence the name St. Polia being a big part of these plants. But they really are a gorgeous house plant. They do well in bathrooms. They do well on kitchen tables. They're doing well in our living wall downstairs. In fact, they're all just coming through for their second flush of flowers at the moment.
Yeah, gorgeous. So they really are that very easy to look after. One thing about them is you don't want to water from the top. They want their water to come in either around the roots or from below. So ideal for those self-watering pots that you can get these days. Perfect for that. And obviously because of that, they want a fairly well draining soil. We've also got at the moment this African violet food, which is a bit of a bargain actually. You're gonna pay about $12.90 for that, but there's 300 grams of that. You make that up; it's a powder. You put 5 grams of it in water and basically put that around the roots of the plant, and it will also feed the plant from a self-watering plant pot as well.
So
you're going to get a whole lot out of that, and that's just going to help with flowering all year round.
And this is the thing with African violets. They do require feeding. Though you mentioned about the watering and watering over the foliage. If you water over the foliage, what you'll find is that it causes marking on the foliage. So you'll end up with leaves that have kind of got white blemishes or damage to them. And you don't want to do that. So that's why those self-watering pots are absolutely ideal. The other little trick with African violets when you are watering them is they really respond well to being watered with warm water. So in preference to general cold tap water, if you put them under the warm water, fill your watering can up and just top them up occasionally with that. They do love that. And that sort of, I suppose, mimics the environment that they're in, which is high humidity, not a lot of rainfall in over the foliage, but a lot of moisture in the soil. So they do really well in that environment.
Obviously, keep them inside in a fairly well lit area, but not direct sunlight. They won't like, because as you say, they're a ground foliage plant. They're not going to like direct sunlight, so not necessarily in full sun in your on your windowsill, but well lit all the same.
Yeah, well, that's certainly a fantastic deal there, mate. What else is happening at Garden Express at the moment?
Well, what we've just done is we've reduced a whole lot of hydrangeas. So customers can get 20% off pretty much our 75mm hydrangea range at the moment. That's well worth a look. And we've got a couple of, I think we've got 3 different varieties of the Endless Summer hydrangeas.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Lemmings in a 200mm pot. So they're looking amazing. Other than that, we've still got a little bit of that buophony left that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. I had a joke for you, Trevor, and it was like, what is the scariest plant that we've got here at Garden Express.
Oh, it'd have to be boophony.
Boophony, exactly right. But they're looking amazing. They're actually the big one up in our net. We've got a couple of really large bulbs, the ones that you would have seen in Bonnie's story. They're actually throwing their flowers at the moment. So there's just a really tight flower on it at the moment. But in a couple of weeks, that's going to probably be a ball of this size. I'll be sure to get some photos and we can show everybody.
Perfect. Well, I've got a challenge for you coming up a bit later in today's show. My plant of the week. I think we'll have a photograph of that coming up. But talk about Halloween. It is it's known as the Dracula lily, and we'll show that a bit later on. I bet you after we sort of show that, there'll be a bunch of people coming to your website looking for those. So it is a bulb. So
we had some black bat plants earlier in the year too, but we haven't got them this side. We had a white and a black one, and they're a stunning, look like a bat.
Yeah.
Really, really beautiful.
Awesome. So just take us back through this special offer you've got again on these African violets. I know they won't last. They have been such a popular houseplant this year.
Yeah, and stocks are relatively limited. Like I said, we've got as many as we can in full flower, like the ones that I've shown you. So a few of them we've got that are just coming into bud, but hopefully we might be able to replenish a little bit closer to Christmas, but at the moment stocks are fairly limited. So normally $17.90 in a 115 ml pot, like I've been showing you, down to just $13.90 delivered directly to your door.
That is amazing. That's exactly what Garden Express do. Of course, all you have to do is jump online, gardenexpress.com.au. You can shop 24/7 and deliver direct to your door. And those beautiful African violets. I've got people commenting, Jeannie Napier, how do you get such huge flowers in those African violets? This is the result of years and years of breeding. And then the guys from Bloomin Orange identified those particular plants as being ideal, created a collection, and that's what you guys are offering.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're offering. Yeah, stunning, big, well-bred, and just beautiful.
Magnificent, mate. Thanks for staying back. I know we started later today. We're testing our audiences to see what people like the most. But thanks for staying back. We will look forward to seeing you again next week, Rowan. Thank you.
Sounds great, mate. Always a pleasure. I'll catch up with you then.
Have a great weekend.
See you.
Well, that's a pretty good deal. African violets are all the trend at the moment as far as houseplants go. Probably going to struggle to find one that's as beautiful when it comes to flowering. So there's a lot going on. We have lots of questions coming through. I think just before we start, I might ask Shaylee if she would just show you how to post your photos so that we can help by having a look at what it is you're doing. And then we'll go to Lana Franks' first question. Have you got a gardening question you'd like us to answer and you need to send us a photo? Well, simply head to our Facebook page and click on message. Type out your question and click the camera icon to take a photo in the app. Or click the image option and select the image you want to send us. Be sure to allow Facebook access to your camera and camera roll. We check our messages regularly, so sit back and be sure to tune in to the Garden Gurus Facebook Live show every Friday, and you'll hear your answer. Well, there we go. That's what you've got to do. Lana Franks has done just that. She's from Queensland. Now, I'm not quite sure, it's a big state, and you've got the tropics, and you've got sort of far less tropical conditions down around Brizzy. Let's have a look at what these photos are. Okay, right. Can someone please tell me how to fix my plant is the question. And this looks very much like a Phalaenopsis orchid, possibly, maybe not, because it's a little difficult to tell, but there's definitely a significant problem. You can see these leaves, they're really showing that the plant's undergone some significant stress of some sort. It looks to me a little bit like a watering problem, like maybe it's getting too much water, but I would love you to send me another couple of photos, to be quite honest, Lana. That would be ideal. It could be, yes, it could be a Hoya, and if it is a Hoya, it's definitely showing signs of too much water. Anyway, we'll have a bit of a look and see if we can get another couple of photos from you. Lisa Steele, hello. You're in Woodvale here in WA. Got a question that no amount of Googling could answer. Got an enormous philodendron in the garden that I need to move. What's the best way to do this? Can I divide it at the stem and leave most of the roots behind? It depends on the variety. There's a lot of clumping philodendrons, and you can break them up. You can actually do that. You can divide them. But there's also, obviously, most of the philodendrons that are out there are actually stem-growing philodendrons. And you just have to take as much of the root system with you as you possibly can. And look, I would recommend that be the practice you would undertake anyway. Remove about 75% of the foliage, because it will die and fall off and it'll look bad. But give it a good dose of sea salt as you transplant, and it should kick it back off to a pretty good start. Okay, let's keep rolling on. There's a lot of questions coming through. I have what seems like rust on my plants. How can I help them? Well, if you've got rust, that is a fungus, so you do need to be very careful. Now, I would suggest, again, send us a photograph. I might be able to help identify it a little bit better. But if it is a rust, you do need to get a fungicide. There's a number of different fungicides available in your local garden centre. And what you do is you mix it up into a watering can and water it over the foliage, or ideally spray it up under the foliage, because generally the rust will be in under the leaf. So hopefully that helps. Albert is in East Cannington. And Albert, you give us questions on a regular basis. Recently bought 2 potted dwarf dahlias from Bunnings. Bloom beautifully with big flowers. Plan to transplant them into the ground. But before I did that, I moved the pots around the house to check where they're best suited in regards to light. However, nothing seemed to work. Moved them under 6 hours of full sun, and they got burnt leaves and shriveled flowers. I moved them under morning sun, and the stems started rotting. So you've really had a bit of a run. Could you scroll down a little bit further for me, please, Shay? And the rest of the question is, even if the flowers manage to bloom, the sizes are very small, not as big as they were from the store. Please advise. Generally, these kinds of plants are grown in glass houses, or certainly in controlled environments. And the ideal scenario is definitely not full sun if they've been grown in a shade environment. Most of these sort of varieties tend to be sort of a little bit more protected. So you're looking for something where you're going to get, at best or at worst, morning sun, and in the afternoon shade, so it's protected. That's not normally the case if you're growing them from tubers. You want them to be in full sun. So it just depends on where it's been grown from the beginning, mate. My recommendation is keep them in one spot, let them harden up to that environment, and they should recover and start to grow. When they do get rot, that's the biggest concern you've got to watch out for. So, Eve Q, you from Jandicott, in the previous session you mentioned Colin Campbell giving you a tip to use gypsum on sandy soils. I'm curious to know more about how this works. So gypsum is just a form of lime. It's a calcium source, and we need to use calcium in our soils. It's actually something that, believe it or not, we're actually quite short of. Garden lime is very alkaline. So if you're applying lime and you're in a sandy soil that's alkaline already, Jandicott tends to be like that. Jandicott's over here in Perth. You end up with a bit of a problem because you're accentuating the alkalinity in the soil, which causes plants to turn yellow, as a general comment. The reason you would use gypsum is it's pH neutral. So it's still a calcium source, but it's not going to make the soil more alkaline, which is really good news for you. So that's why I was talking about Colin and his advice with regards to gypsum on sandy soils, or alkaline soils more so. So hopefully that explains that. Leah Robinson, hello Leah. You're in southeast Queensland, I know. What veggies would be suitable to grow in a hot, dry summer? We're dealing with below average rainfall here in southeast Queensland. All right, good question. And to be quite honest, the answer to that is usually the plants that come from the Solanum family. So chilies, capsicums, tomatoes, they all deal with those sorts of conditions quite well. Eggplants are another one. They love hot, dry summers. They're really, really good in that environment. The broader, leafier ones tend to require a lot more water. So your brassicas, that's your cabbages, your cauliflower, kales, etc., not going to do super well during those hot, dry periods of time. And the same goes with lettuce. So there's a lot of different types of lettuce. But again, the issue with those is going to be they require a lot of water. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. Leah, Jean Cunningham. Hello, Jean. I'm not sure where you are from. I've got a rosemary plant that grew really well and now started to die branch by branch. Not overwatering at all. I'm at a loss as to what is happening. Please help. My advice to you is cut your rosemary back in half immediately. It could be that you've got a bit of a fungus. They do get some sort of leaf stem funguses. They're like a collar rot. And the best thing you can do is just cut it back, give it a bit of a feed and stand back, because it should push out new growth and it should recover from that. But if you leave it long and it's dying branch by branch, eventually it'll die off. So this should solve that problem. Jenny Oliver, you're in Adelaide. You've sent us some photos. This is great. My Hoya is looking really sick. Are you able to advise me on how to save it? Let's have a look at your Hoya photo. There we go. Oh, this is the one we were talking about before. Yeah, it is a Hoya. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that to me is definitely a water issue. So that's definitely looking to me like you're giving it too much water. Definitely don't let it sit in a tray of water. Keep it on the drier side and it should recover. You should be fine. Cheryl Hughes, you're in Vic Park. Vic Park is over here in WA. I wanted to plant some grevilleas, Pink Profusion or Aphrodite's Dream in a pot. How big a pot would I need and how do I care for it? What soil, light and watering requirements? Get yourself a specialist native potting mix. First thing, there's a Ripper product, comes from the guys at Osmocote, and they do an Osmocote for native plants. I would use that. I would use controlled release fertilizer. The pot itself needs to be minimum 400, ideally probably 500 mil wide, and ideally at least that sort of depth again. So you're probably talking a couple of bags of potting mix going into that, nearly probably 50 odd litres, I would say. The interesting thing about it is that they do require feeding. They do require a little bit of pruning every once in a while. Just keep trimming them. You'll promote more flower, more growth, and they'll look fantastic. But they do very well in pots. Patrice Campbell, you're in Queensland. Hello to everybody in Queensland. I'm currently growing society garlic. I'm interested in propagating and selling it. What is the best method of propagation? Would it be division? Absolutely. So society garlic is a clumping plant, and you will see lots of different little stems. And yes, you can divide them out. But probably the easiest way to grow it is to let it go into flower and let the flower go to seed, because they germinate like crazy. The only downside is often you'll find that society garlic, by the way, is a variegated garlic. You'll find that sometimes it'll come up green, and that's just the risk with seed, is that you should get some variation. So yeah, I'll probably do both. Collect some seed and divide them as they spread. Ella Weller, hello Ella Weller, you're in Bendigo in Victoria. This tree is looking a bit sick. Any advice on treatment? Let's have a look at this photograph. This looks to me like, oh, it's very difficult to really tell exactly what that tree is. It does look very sticky. It doesn't look like it's got a lot of foliage on it, but it could be a deciduous variety, and I just can't quite pick what that actually looks like. But look, as a general comment, the trick with trees, first of all, is if they've got any dead wood in them, clean the dead wood out, prune it, get an extendable pruner and just prune off all those branches, first thing. Second thing, and it might be an indicator for you, but second thing is that I would be soaking the ground around the base of the tree with sea salt. And this is totally for one reason and one reason only, and that is to stimulate more root growth. So really important that you're trying to get the roots to recover, because it does indicate that there is some kind of root damage. So hopefully that helps, Ella Weller. Back to Brisbane, we've got questions coming from all over the country, which is fantastic. Back in Brisbane, Lindy MH. Hi guys, can you tell me if these are pumpkin vines coming up in our compost or just weeds? And it looks to me very much like it is pumpkin. I would say you've definitely got some pumpkin seeds coming up, and which is quite a natural thing if you've been throwing some of your kitchen scraps into that. And I can see that you've got eggshells and things like that in there, so it's highly likely, I would say. Lindy. Paula Barber, hello, you're in Adelaide. I've got an Alocasia wentii. That's the hardy elephant ears that is a terrific plant, but it's got brown spots on the leaves. How do I treat it? It's again an indication that it went through some kind of stress, and you can see this here with the photographs. it's got literally a burn mark, and that's not going to recover on that leaf. What you want to do is promote new leaf growth. So I'd be applying a controlled release fertilizer to this plant, encouraging it to put out some new leaves, and then take the old leaves off that have got the scars. That's the best way to deal with it. Vanessa Lund, you're in Perth. My bottle brush tree is dying, and I've found lots of this. What can I do? Let's have a look. Okay, that is actually not a problem, believe it or not. That particular plant is a very interesting plant. They do actually have some significant, you will see bottle brushes this time of the year actually deteriorate. And it's usually those trees that are very old and they're coming to the end of their life. Now, you can prune them and you can try and stimulate some more growth or regrowth. But what you're probably going to find, and we're just talking with Lawrence, one of our senior camera operators here, he's just taken a couple of old trees out, and we went to his house and filmed there. And look, I treated the ground with sea salt and everything else, but when an old tree is, at the end of its life, it will slowly deteriorate like this. And all you're seeing here is just an insect using it as a host to lay its web, which has got eggs underneath and eventually will hatch to be a small grub. So, hopefully that helps. Right, let's have a look. Kate Stern has sent us some photographs, and I've got two large pots with plants in them. One's a Nandina, the other one is a Salvia. I think it's a Salvia, you mean? And I've filled them completely with soil. Now, about 2 years later, the soil has sunk considerably, and I need to top it up. However, I also realised afterwards that I probably didn't need to use so much soil to fill the whole pot. So the question is, what sort of pot filler can I use in these pots? It's a really good question. So the plants are only going to use probably about half of that soil in the pots. The soil at the bottom, it's unlikely that it'll host any roots down there. And the risk is, I suppose, that the nutrients will just flush out of that soil and it will just sort of be waste. I've done things like fill the bottom of the pot with some waste foam, or there are a lot of fillers that you can put in there. You can even put a group of small plastic containers into the bottom, like old pots as an example, and then put some shade cloth across the top and then the soil on top of that. That will, potting mix isn't cheap, so that will give you the ability to grow the plant and not have to use the whole pot when it comes to filling it up with soil. The other thing I think needs to be mentioned about this is slumping. And slumping is when that soil does break down. And what it is, it's an indication that the soil's organic material has broken down. And as it does that, you'll see it starts to compact down. The soil literally, the plant's taking the carbon out of the soil and storing it in its stem. And as you see the plant grow, it's actually taking goodness out. And as such, you'll see your soil start to come down. Topping up your soil this time of the year is a really smart move, but do it with a really good quality potting mix. I look, minimum from my point of view would be the red tick. There's really good. All right, okay. I'm getting some bad news at the moment about my plant of the week photo. So we'll find that and see if we can't fix it. I think Shaylee's trying to sort it out now. Margaret Best, hello. You're from Port Broughton in the Upper York Peninsula of South Australia. I'd like to try growing a quandong tree, but I've heard they need a host plant to draw water from. What sort of plant is the best host, and will the quandong eventually kill the host? Do I need two for cross-pollination? You don't need two. That's the first bit of good news. Hosts, well, to be quite honest, they'll host off pretty much any other kind of plant, and they do have a parasitic nature, not completely. So they do take some nutrient out of the ground, but they attach to other plants so they can take nutrient out of them, not moisture. The interesting thing about quandongs is that there's quite a range of them, quite a variation in them and how they perform. But if you were to put something that's a little bit more a member, for example, of the Melaleuca family, you'll find that they will literally parasite onto those straight away. So that's why you're doing it. That's what the host plant is. It's actually providing that quandong with some nutrient that it can take up, but the quandong was not able to do. So hopefully that helps with that. Let's come back to Perth. All right, Wendy P. Strauss, hello. Strauss, sorry. I would love to grow lavender in a pot. Summer here can be extremely hot. What do you suggest I do to keep it growing? Well, the answer is yes, they will grow in pots, but you do need to give them, they do have quite a good root system, lavender, and you do need to give them a reasonably large pot. So probably something around that sort of 300 millimeter mark would be ideal. And that should help us from the point of view of keeping the roots. There is a thing in very hot climates, and particularly Perth, it's a really good example, but plants will grow their roots sideways and usually in the top sort of 100 to 200 mil of soil. As it goes and it hits the side of the pot, it'll grow down the side of the pot. Now, the downside to that is that on a very hot day, particularly if you've got, say, a black pot, the heat builds up in that pot and those roots are flush against it. So the plant can start to stress. So that's when you start to see, good plants starting to deteriorate quite quickly. And so wetting agents are very important. With a lavender, you do want to, most of them get to quite a decent size. So you do want a decent sized pot, at least a 3, maybe even a 400 millimeter pot. Now that's 400 millimeters from one side of the pot to the other. And then the depth of the pot, you probably want it to be a minimum of 300 millimeters as well. So hopefully that helps you with that particular decision. Jean Cunningham, hello. Sorry, one last question for today, please. I've got 2 silver birches. One is fine, looks really healthy, and leaves on the other are droopy. Any ideas, please? It's a bit odd. Droopy is not a good sign with silver birches. Once they're established, they're generally a pretty hardy tree, but they hate drying out. And if they do dry out, the deterioration in the root system, the health of the root system, has a significant impact on the life and the longevity of the tree. So I suspect here that you've actually got a situation where it's actually dried out and you need to get some wetting agent into the ground around the base of this tree, soak that ground, make sure the wetting agent's washed right in and give it every chance to recover. A little bit of sea salt. So maybe use the sea salt wetting agent as the option for you. Hopefully that helps. All right. Now, plant of the week, I wanted to show you this one. It's a big, unusual plant that's growing in my garden. You can see it's right next to the water feature. See that huge flower? Okay, so it's known as Dracula's plant or Dracula's lily, and it's an interesting. It is a lily. It is a bulbous plant. Absolutely massive flower. That's got to be. I'm not exaggerating. It's got to be at least a meter long, and you'll see in the middle of that flower there's a big long stem. Now, when that opens up, the area in around this is in a little courtyard, in around this area will not be habitable from a family point of view because it smells like rotting meat. And sometimes they'll call this the corpse flower. And, there's a very, very big version of this. But this is the first year that they've flowered at my place, and they're throwing up this 2 major large flowers and 1 smaller plant that's throwing up a flower as well. So we're going to have 3 flowers that instead of having a beautiful perfume, have a perfume that smells like rotten meat. Now, the reason for that is, of course, they want to attract a pollinator, but the pollinators are not bees, they're blowflies. So this isn't exactly one that you want to have too close to the house, but it is unusual. It's weird. I thought with Halloween celebrations going on, why not bring in Dracula's lily? Pretty cool, huh? It's a bit different. All right. Has anybody got anything like that growing at home? Because they will be in flower at your place too, right at the moment. So you should be seeing them. Let me know. All right. Rick from Wollongong. Rick DiFrancesco. Hello. What type of fertilizer should I use in my fig tree? Okay. A high K fertilizer, mate, is the simple answer. And with high K fertilizers, that's high potassium. So you want to have a look for that. You can use in a one-off kind of situation, bit of sulfate of potassium or sulfate of potash does a really good job in boosting the fig production, the actual production of the fruit itself. Remembering figs are not really fruits, they're actually a flower. In fact, they're hundreds of flowers inside a contained organ of the plant. It's a really interesting plant, the fig, and this will help Rick enormously. So sulfate of potash, but any of those specialized fruit fertilizers or anything that's fruit and flower promoting, that'll do the job. Lynn Winstanley is over here in Claremont. She's a great supporter of this, and it's great to have you with us, Lynn. She's got a similar sort of question in a way. I want to fertilize my gardenias, azaleas, but what is the best fertilizer to use, Osmocote or Troforte? What a question to ask me. You know what? They're both fantastic fertilizers. Osmocote obviously is a controlled release fertilizer. It uses osmosis to release. So the warmer the temperatures are, the more nutrient that's released. So as we move into summer, you'll find it starts to really move nutrient into the soil quite fast, and that works quite well for a lot of plants because the warmer it is, the faster they grow. However, the Troforte product is completely different. It's a controlled release again, but through a different mechanism, not through osmosis. And so it's a graduated slow release over a long period of time. And what it does, what breaks it down, are microbes. So it's actually an attachment of those microbes, those beneficial soil microbes, that actually makes Troforte work so well, which is why you need to try and get it into the soil, ideally, and obviously keep the moisture up for it. And once you do that, it comes to life. Troforte is very much about fertilizing the soil and building the soil biology. Osmocote is very much about providing nutrients on a regular basis. Do similar things, but they've just got a different way of doing it. Good question, Lynn. It's got to be in the running for question of the day for sure. Lynn Sprigg, speaking of Lynn's, hello Lynn Sprigg. I'm not sure where you are from, but you've got a good question. I have grown a boab from seed, but kept it in a pot. Now you repotted it 18 months, 2 years ago. It's quite tall. So I wanted to try and trim the middle leader at the top, only down about a foot or so, but I don't want to kill it. Is this okay to do it? Well, you can definitely trim boab trees, and if you're going to keep it in a pot, they make the most wonderful bonsais, and by trimming it, you'll encourage the stems to start to swell. So yeah, why not? You can do it. Go for it, Lynn. I'd love to know where you're from, though, because you've done a good job. If you've been able to grow it from seed and it's now 2 years old, you've done a great job in getting it through, which hardens them up and makes them ideal for southern locations, because remembering boabs much prefer the north, and they prefer a two-season environment, so wet season, dry season. Okay, Sharon Spall, hello. What are the disadvantages in sugarcane mulch, please? I'm not a big fan of sugarcane mulch. A lot of people swear by it, but for me personally, not really my personal favourite. There's a few different reasons why, but what I tend to find with it, whilst it will add organics and carbon to the soil, it's not exactly a mulch that's going to hold moisture in the soil longer. So that's a pretty important thing to try and achieve with mulches. If you really lay a big thick layer of it, sure it will. There is no doubt about it. But yeah, look, it's a byproduct obviously of sugar production, and there's a lot of people, as I said, will swear by it. It's certainly going to smother out weeds. It's certainly, if it's really thick, going to do that. But from my point of view, I much prefer a composted organic material that's, leaf litter, tree waste, those sorts of things that have been through a proper composting process. Really important. Okay, let's keep going along. And I think I've got a question from somebody named Shaylee. So I suspect that she's chosen to post this question and not talk to me direct about this. She says, I planted a lot of different tomato seeds, Big Beef, Heirloom, Tiny Toms, red and yellow, and one that I'm very excited for, the Traveller's tomato. I knew I was going overboard, and I knew that the amount I was planting was going to become a problem. Now the time's come for repotting, and I'm panicking. How big a pot do these species really need? And can I get soil and the pots for as little money as possible? Well, soil is a pretty big investment. You need to invest in good quality soil. If you're going to get a potting mix, don't buy cheap potting mix. It's the best bit of advice you'll ever get. Get a quality mix, invest in that. If you want to make your own compost at home, which is one of the things I recommend doing, that can be made to be a very good potting mix. But there's ingredients that need to go into it. So if you can't be bothered doing that, Shaylee, you need to just think about investing in the soil. The soil is the key to success. Tomatoes are extremely hungry. The pot size, well, I've seen beautiful plants producing really good fruit from just a 250 ml tub that's about probably 30 centimetres deep. So that would be your minimum. The ideal would probably be a minimum, probably 300 ml size pot, which would give you a pretty good result. All right, let's keep moving along. Jody Janaway, Central Coast of New South Wales. Do you know if you can top Davidson plums to force them to branch out more and keep them at a shorter height? The answer is yes, you can. Davidson plum can be pruned relentlessly. It will impact the production of fruit, but look, prune them, shape them how you want them to be. That's a very easy thing to do, and they do respond very well. Patricia Rockcliffe, you're in Dardanup over here in WA. You've sent us some photos. Let's have a look at what we've got here. Patricia. Okay, cyclamen. I can grow cyclamens like weeds. However, they never die back completely. I need to repot some and remove babies that have come up in these pots. Excuse me, sorry. How do I encourage them to stop growing? Well, that's a strange problem to have, Patricia. Funny thing about cyclamen is in their natural environment, they literally grow under the base of trees in amongst leaf litter. And if you wanted to take some of those pups and spread them around, that would be a good way to go. But yeah, you've got a problem that most people would kill to have. So let's not worry about that too much. Okay, let's have a look here. Matt Young, you're in Melbourne. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm looking at a narrow feature tree for the front of my office building, something that won't grow too high, but will be narrow and attractive. Could I please give you some suggestions, Matt? There are a lot of different trees that grow like that. You will find that there's a couple of lovely columnar. In fact, if you go to the Fleming's website, have a look at their columnar trees. There's a number of columnar trees that they have that grow up like a column. So, and when it comes to height, a lot of them do get quite tall. But look, don't be scared to take them back every once in a while. Every 3 or 4 years, prune them back hard, and you can do that. Now, there's also some lovely columnar. There's a beautiful lime compressors that I've seen just recently, a cypress, and it's a lovely columnar form of that. And I think I'm going to be adding it to my garden. It's got a really strong lemony fragrance attached to it, and a real feature plant. So there's a few options out there. Best thing to do, jump on that Fleming's website. I'm pretty sure it's www.flemings.com.au. I'm pretty sure that's it, or it might be Fleming's Nursery. But anyway, check them out, Google them. They've got some amazing trees, and they'll do very well in that environment. Okay. Oh, and Fleming's, by the way, are from Victoria as well. So most of their trees have actually been grown in Victorian conditions, which is even better. Tracy Pace, you are in Sydney. Hello, how are you? My once beautiful potted olive tree is a little sad. She's got spots on the underside of the leaves and appears to be losing leaves. My help would be greatly appreciated. Okay, Tracy, I suspect that if we were to take a look at the photos, and I don't think we have any photos for this one, but we still have cyclamen photos up at the moment, I think. But if I was going to answer this for you, what I would say to you is that I suspect you've got scale. It's quite a common problem with olive trees, and particularly in humid environments, and Sydney can be at times. The best thing you could probably do is really give it a good soak with a wetting agent. With a horticultural oil is what I mean. So eco oil, white oil, pest oil, they're all really good. But what you want to do is you want to spray under the foliage as much as you can, because that'll smother over the scale and bring the populations back. And then I would be feeding it to encourage more root growth and, of course, more foliage growth as a consequence of that. Hopefully that helps. And it might be also an indicator that the tree needs to be repotted. One of the things with potting plants that's really important, I should share this with you, is that every 2 years or so, you should actually repot your existing plants. If they've been in the same pot for several years, that soil is tired, and replenishing that by shaking out the old soil and putting in some new fresh potting mix will just stimulate more root growth and keep the plant looking really healthy. So every couple of years, a major repot of all of your plants in pots is a good thing to do. Okay, let's keep moving along. Oh, we're going to Broome. Hello, Jan Hardy. How are you? I'm looking to grow some natives near the beach. What would I recommend? Now, Broome is it is very much either a tropical, very humid environment during the wet season, or a very hot, dry climate during the dry season. There are a lot of plants that will grow in that environment, but the best thing you can do is get into your local garden centre. Now, I recommend that because those plants will be plants that are selected for your area. There's a whole bunch, and you said you're pretty close to the beach as well, which is really important to keep in mind, that you really do need to make sure that you are getting those that are tolerant of those sorts of extremes. The challenges that beach or being close to beach, salty winds, etc., can present, you need to have the right plants. So, yeah, drop into your local garden centre. It's probably the best advice I can give you. Mel Smedley, hello. Kama camellia. Its leaves come and go, and they come and go. They go brown, they go gold, they go green. Loving you would be easy if they were all green. So you've got a little bit of a Halloween pun going on there. But you're in northeast Victoria, and you said you're going to send us a photo too. It sounds to me like the foliage of your tree, of your camellia tree, is just showing you signs that it's not super happy. It'd be worthwhile checking your soil to see if it's acidic. If it's got a little alkaline, that will make your foliage go light green, even possibly a bit of a golden yellow colour if it's really bad. And I suspect that what you're going to find is that that's what's going on. So repotting camellia at the moment, if it's in a pot, is a great idea. If it's in the ground, get a nice big thick layer of compost around the outside. Now that'll buffer the pH, balance it out a lot better for you, and that should help. And nice question. Well done playing the Halloween game with us as well. I'm just having a look. We've got lots and lots of great questions coming through. Okay, let's go to James Young in Joondalup. So Joondalup's over here in Perth. My lawn's riddled with weeds at the moment, spiky kind. What would you recommend? Definitely a weed and feed. In fact, just a hose-on weed and feed right at the moment will take out any of the broadleaf weeds. Unfortunately, the spiky kind suggests that it might actually be something like bindi, which is starting to dry out and will be a problem. And if you spray the bindi, whilst you'll kill off what's left, the truth of the matter is you're not going to stop the seed for next year. So you need to do this, James, about a month ago. So somewhere back end of August, mid-August, sort of beginning of September, hose your lawn down with a weed and feed, and it will do the job. Hopefully that helps. Tracy Pace, what would I use for a free, I'm not sure what that question is, a free please for her olive tree? What does that mean, Shaylee? What does that mean? What can she use to help her olive for free? Well, the interesting thing about olives is they're probably one of the toughest trees out there. They grow in pretty barren soils and do incredibly well, so you don't have to do a lot with them. This is an interesting. This is okay. This is the continuation. There's not a lot you can do for free when it comes to these things. If you're finding that it's got that, then the oil, the horticultural oil, will do the world of good. But feeding it is really important. So giving it some fertilizer, and it can be a liquid fertilizer. It just needs to be given a bit of love, Tracy. Hopefully that helps you with your question. All right, let's keep rolling along. And we did have a talk about Shaylee's tomatoes earlier on. I probably didn't mention about when you've got excess plants, we are pretty much in a situation where it's a case of sharing them in and around friends. So I would be planting them and sort of helping out there, I think. There's a couple of really interesting things that are going on in the garden this time of the year, and one of them is that soil is starting to dry out. I'm seeing it in my garden a lot, and as that does that, you're going to see some of your plants start to drop their foliage, and it's a natural adjustment of the plant, literally making sure that the amount of moisture that it's able to take up through its roots is equivalent to what's required for the foliage above. And when it finds that it's a bit short, it'll drop leaves. So there's a few people a bit concerned about that. It is a natural process. So it's either increase the moisture that's going to the soil in and around where that plant is, so that the roots are getting lots and lots of moisture, or alternatively, don't worry, it's just the plant adjusting for the season, and that happens quite a bit. Denise Dwyer, hello, how are you? You're in Adelaide. I've discovered soaking my houseplants is the most successful way to keep them alive. what should I do for fertilizing? Well, when you're soaking them, that water that you're in, get a liquid fertilizer and mix that into the water. Soak them in there, and the water will draw all that through into the plant. But of course, at the same time, you'll be putting nutrients back into the plant as well. Very easy way to go, Denise. And if you're going to ask me what sort of fertilizer, I would suggest something like Thrive would be fantastic for most house plants. Exception being, you want to use the Thrive for flowering plants if you are going to apply this to flowering plants. So orchids, African violets, those sorts of things. Definitely the Thrive for flowering plants, definitely not the other one, because the other one's very high nitrogen. That encourages lots of growth, but not lots of flower. Does that make sense? I hope so. King Leo, hello mate, how are you? Bought this volunteer camellia last year and is repotted in premium azalea and camellia potting mix. I have numerous fat buds, but when they finally opened, it was a disappointment. What have I done wrong? It's a really good question, King. I'm not really sure what's gone on there, because volunteer is a beautiful camellia. You shouldn't be disappointed. The flowers should be perfect. I can't really answer that without probably saying to you that that maybe the thing for you to do would be to just apply a little bit of camellia and azalea fertilizer. It's got to be in a pot, so you could use a controlled release version. The Troforte product is probably ideal for this, and just see whether it's not enough, because those are huge flowers and it uses a lot of energy to produce them. Maybe it's just run out of energy in the soil, so maybe boosting the soil nutrient content will help a lot. I would think it will. Dave Miller, hello. Have you heard of the Janina Rose, and where could I get one? I had one, but it died on me, and I do not know much about this at all. We actually had this question before. I'm not sure whether it was you, Dave, and we didn't get around to actually answering it, but it is a good question, and I will do some research and I will come back to you on that one, because one is I'm not sure where you get it, and two is I don't know anything about the plant itself. So being completely upfront, can't know it all, can you? Margaret Campion, hello, you're in Belgrave. Got a beautiful magnolia, the perfumed one. It's about 3 meters tall in a pot. I noticed some of the leaves turn yellow, and I noticed in the back of the leaves very small pinprick-like things on the leaves themselves. My very healthy-looking hydrangea also looks limp, and they have a very salt white insect on them. I'm not sure what that means. What can I do to bring them back to health? Okay, so let's deal with both of these, because there's two questions here. The first one, the very, very first one I'm going to bring up with you is the magnolia. It probably indicates to me that the soil's drying out, Margaret. That's more likely than anything else affecting the leaves on them. They do sometimes get some sort of, they're actually mites, red spider mite or two-spotted mite, and it can cause this sort of problem. But I'd be surprised this time of the year if that's what you've got. I think it might just be that the moisture levels are drying out in the soil. So I would be getting a wetting agent and applying that around the base and giving it a really good soak. And let's see how that goes for a little while. If you still see considerable amount of damage occurring, then let me know and I'll give you a secondary suggestion, which will be a treatment for a mite. When it comes to your hydrangea, young leaves looking limp, that's a bit of a worry. There could be water, and again, a wetting agent to the hydrangea soil area will really help. But the white insect on them is a bit of a giveaway. That sounds to me like you have definitely got yourself some mealybug there, and that is give it a good soak with a wetting agent. That will help. With a wetting agent. Horticultural oil. Keep going to wetting agents at the moment. Horticultural oil is the key. So that's white oil, pest oil, eco oil. One of those will do the job in taking the mealybug out. But now is the time to do it. I still don't think that that's what's causing the leaves to look limp, but it is what it is. Treat the mealybug that way. Make sure you're getting a wetting agent in around the base, that the soil is wet, because what we're seeing now is all the impacts of soil drying out as we move into summer. We are on the cusp of a change in the season, even though we're at the end of October, and we've still got the whole month of November to go of spring. what we're seeing now is the change in the soil moisture levels, and that will affect plants. And as I mentioned before about many trees dropping their leaves, classic would be many of the eucalypt trees, the red gums. They do shed a lot of leaves this time of the year as the soil changes. Even though they've got deep root systems, they still know, and it's how they manage it, and it's completely natural. There's nothing you can really do other than maybe try and supplement a bit of extra moisture. Now, we've got 2 more questions because we're coming up to the end of the show. Jasmine Teller, you're in Victoria. Where do you buy or find your seeds and plants? Well, I tend to sort of shop around a fair bit, but I really do. I probably most of the time, my seeds would be, coming from either an online seed supplier, or alternatively, I love getting into my local Bunnings store or my local garden centre and going through the seed racks and having a look and seeing what they've got. There's always something interesting in there. I never ever leave without a packet of seeds because I do love growing plants from seed. So that's that. I should say on plants, these days, if I can get into a garden centre, great. If not, the comfort of being able to shop online with Garden Express is just too irresistible. So I actually do a fair bit of online shopping there. And of course, that's www.gardenexpress.com.au. Check them out. They're pretty good. Jackie Watson, hello. My little Johns are very pale green. Next door neighbours have pencil pines along the fence. Does this affect them? What can I do? It might affect them, and it might, but it's not maybe for the reason you think. It might just be that the pencil pines are drawing a lot of nutrient out of the soil. If your little Johns, which are a callistemon, a type of bottle brush, are going a little bit on the yellow side, the trick was really to make sure that you're increasing the fertilizer. Everything has been producing flower and growing really fast and using huge amounts of energy. And if you're not replacing that in your soil, your plants are going to really struggle. So fertilizing now is really the important thing to do. I really think that that's probably what you should be looking at doing. Shall we get to the winner of our Garden Express gift voucher? It's really hard. And I think Shaylee's picked a winner for us, which is great. I think it's a great question. So well done, Lynn Sprigg. You've grown a boab from seed. By the way, Lynn, turns out she was from WA, and she's done very well because where she's growing them, it's a bit cooler and it can be a bit more challenging. She's repotted it. She wants to know if she could cut it back, and the answer is yes. And you can treat it as a bonsai in a pot, or later on you can plant it out if you want. Congratulations, Lynn. You will find, Shaylee will send you through the link and you will be able to go shopping, gardenexpress.com.au 24/7 and deliver it direct to your door. It doesn't get any better than that. Now, we've got the Garden Gurus on again this weekend. We're starting to get to the end of the season, so make sure you tune in and check out some of the shows. Really, really good stories at the moment. I just love some of the stuff that the team have been doing. And of course, Nige is up to, he's being naughty as usual. He's got a pretty funny story or two, a few little quirky little jokes. I think I may be the brunt of a couple of them. I probably deserve it too. Thanks so much for all your questions. And if we didn't get to your question today, do not worry. We'll do it next week. And we've got another live show, obviously, next Friday. So catch the Garden Gurus on Saturday on Channel 9, 4:30 nationally, right across the country. Next week, make sure you join us. Tell your friends about this show. It's completely free. We answer your questions, and we have a little bit of fun along the way, as you've seen today, with all the work that Shaylee's done to make this a little festive with Halloween. So hopefully you enjoy that. Now, remember, if you do have any questions that you need answered straight away, check out our website. It's a great resource. There's all sorts of information. If you want to see stories, you want to watch maybe some of the programs, at your leisure, check out our YouTube channel. That's the gardengurus.tv as well. Whew, that was pretty busy, wasn't it? We went through a lot of questions in a very short period of time, and time has flown, but we just turned 4 o'clock over here in Perth. It's 7 o'clock in sunny the East Coast, which is not going to be sunny just at 7 o'clock. And it's probably time for you to have dinner. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Trevor Cochran. We'll see you next week for the Garden Gurus Live.